meeting for October 4th. Could we start the meeting by rising for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Bieber? Dr. Carter?
Here.
Mrs. Eisenhart? Here. Mrs. Henry? Here. Mrs. Hume? Here. Mr. Sheets?
Here.
Mr. Tomasi?
Mr. Tomasi notified us that he will be away on a family event.
Mrs. Wallizer? Here. Mr. Wagman?
Here.
7 present.
All right, moving on to recognitions.
So we have 2 recognitions that we're going to do this evening, just because we have a new audience. Before we even get started with that, I want to first welcome you to our new board space as well as our professional development room. So we've been doing a lot of work within the intermediate middle school here. This will be now the new home for our board meetings. It's also more prominently used for our professional development space. We'll be able to close that wall, still have library over there, and then use this for professional development. If anyone would need to use the facilities while we are in the meeting, if you go down the hallway where we came in, right before you go down the stairs to the auditorium, there's a male and female bathroom down there. So just so you can orient yourself where you are. So that being said, welcome to our renovated space. And in our school board meetings on a regular basis, we try to recognize employees. We have a program called the New Heights Award, and it's an opportunity for anyone, students, parents, staff, to recognize a staff member that's going above and beyond. And typically we get about 20 to 30 recognitions that happen on a monthly basis. And then as an administrative team, we pick the top 2. So it kind of becomes the employee of the month. And so we are excited this month to recognize 2 of our staff members. The first one we're going to recognize is Miss Jennifer Fodor. So Miss Fodor, if you don't mind coming up. So Mr. Jinich, now Ms. Fodor works as our official school nurse. She is the school nurse at the elementary school as well as the high school. She is Captain COVID contact tracer and does a phenomenal job for us. So Mr. Jinich is going to speak. We were kind of debating. Is it going to be Dr. Reese? Is it going to be Ms. Kelly, or is it going to be Mr. Jinich? And Mr. Jinich won.
And I gladly volunteered because obviously with a lot of the challenges that the last 18, 19 months have presented us, a lot of roles have shifted. And I have to say from a nursing department standpoint, the amount of just work and challenges that the department has faced in the face of the pandemic has been astronomical. And then even starting this year, a lot of the things, our first 3 weeks were very challenging, but to still be able to deliver that level of care to our students at the elementary level, but then also up at the high school level, Mrs. Fodor just does such an exceptional job. And through it all, is absolutely still lovely to work with. And even in the midst of contact tracing, 150 kids our first 3 weeks was still, we're smiling while we're doing it because it's the only way we can get to the situation. So thank you so much. Our kids are lucky to work with you, and even when they're not feeling well now, still have that same level of care in our nursing department.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, our second staff member that we're going to recognize this evening is Drew Thusk. So Drew, if you don't mind coming up. So Drew has been with us, but more steadily has been on site in the school district since the summer essentially, and works directly with our technology. So I asked Mr. Volker to say a few words.
Absolutely. So Drew came to us from Nimble IT, primarily positioned in the Reading School District. He's the one that really helped us reintegrate all of our systems. He's an integration specialist. I say an integration guru. So as we changed our student information system, he's the one that got all of our systems talking to one another. Then during the summer, our former lead technician, Matt Brom, accepted a position elsewhere. We were happy for him, but then me and my position, I'm like, oh no, we just lost our key person right before the school year started. And then Drew came to us. And the clouds parted and the angels sang, and it was a beautiful moment. honestly, Drew's been fantastic for the school district. We have not, and I can tell you this is year 4 of our lease cycle, which means that this is when the devices are the oldest and you traditionally have the most issues that you would usually experience. We have not had a smoother start to this school year than we did this year, and I honestly credit a lot of that to Drew, and not just his basic troubleshooting, but his foresight. He doesn't come to me with issues that don't have solutions. He's like, hey, I'm seeing this. You know what? I've seen it work this way before. What are your thoughts about this? And I'm like, I love it. Let's do that and let's move forward. And usually the next day, like everything's all cranked out and working beautifully. So his timeliness, his effort, his foresight, I honestly can't say enough positive things about the work that Drew has done to help our school year start successfully.
Thank you, Mr. Holder.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thanks, Tom.
So the final recognition we were planning to do this evening was the recognition of one of our school board members, Mr. David Beaver, but he wasn't able to join us this evening. His recognition was for 8 years of service. So we will try to do that next meeting and make sure that we give that to certificate to him next meeting.
All right, moving on to student board representative report. Tatiana?
In the elementary school last Friday, the Topton Fire Company joined students to talk about fire safety. Jansen Dixon received a special ride to school on a fire truck. In addition to learn about overall fire safety, all the students were able to see the fire truck and learned about all the tools it has. On October 8th, the PTC is hosting their annual Race for Education. Students in the elementary school will walk across the street to the intermediate and middle school track to run laps as a fundraiser. If the fundraising goal is reached, Ms. Kelly will have to do something crazy. The kids have yet to vote on what she will do. On October 29th, the elementary school students will celebrate Halloween. The high school band will lead the intermediate school students to join the elementary school students for a little parade. Following the parade, they will celebrate with Halloween-related activities and games. Last week at the high school was the Homecoming Spirit Week. During the week, students nominated 10 seniors for the Homecoming Court. At the conclusion of the week, students voted for a homecoming queen and king from the top 10 nominated. Also on Friday, students dressed by class in a specific color and attended the first homecoming pep rally since October 4th, 2019. This was the first outdoor pep rally. The marching band performed a few songs, chamber singers sang the national anthem, cheerleaders performed, and the homecoming court played a game. The same day in the evening was the homecoming dance. This past Saturday was the homecoming game. Marching band and chamber singers performed once again. Madeline Fedorowicz was crowned homecoming queen, and Dylan Cortez was crowned homecoming king. Girls soccer played against Anvil Creona Dutchman and sadly lost 3-2 in double overtime. Now that homecoming is over, the high school looks forward to other fall events like the Powder Puff football game, which will take place when athletics are finished for the season, and Halloween Town. On October 24th, the PSAT will be administered for sophomores and all juniors. In addition, colleges have begun to visit the high school for interested students to meet their representatives and receive more information. School clubs have also started meeting and have begun to plan events and opportunities for their members. Another exciting thing taking place at the high school is the Brandywine Heights Clothing Circle. Mr. Dinich insisted I mention that I'm leading the project. I started the project to earn my Girl Scout Gold Award. For the award, I must address an issue in my community and create a lasting solution. Thus, I decided to start the BH Clothing Circle to help both the community and environment. I, with a small group of my peers, hold community-wide clothing collections and distributions at the high school. After a collection, we sort through all the clothing and select specific items to be stored in a cabinet that we painted located in the school library. The cabinet is open throughout the entire school day for students to take any clothing, shoes, belts, and backpacks, all for free. Clothing not reserved for high school students is laid out for the community to take for free at our distributions. The next clothing collection will actually be this Saturday, October 9th, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the high school.
So Tom, thank you so much. Can you give the board just a little bit of an idea of the magnitude of the clothes that you did in your drive?
Well, we had like bags and bags and bags. And it fills up like all the tables in the cafeteria when we laid it all out and sorted it through. And we've already donated a lot of it to Goodwill that we decided wasn't good enough for what we had because we have so much clothing. But we're looking to find some new clothes so that we don't have the same things for the people who have already come.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome project. It was neat to see them going through it this summer. And then at one point, we were doing a training upstairs in the high school library. So I could, through those glass windows, look down. And as Tatiana said, all the tables are full with mounds of clothing, right, Tatiana? And like, she's a small army, 2 or 3 of our friends are going through all of it, sorting it. And so I give her a tremendous kudos for what she's doing from an idea perspective, helping our community out, but also just the work that she's done to pull this off has been incredible. So great job, Tatiana.
Thank you.
Nice work. All right, Lauren, intermediate and middle school.
In the middle school, the first dance of the year will be on Friday, October 15th, and the theme is Hawaiian. Red Ribbon Week, which is an anti-drug program, will be October 25th to the 29th. Trick or Treat for UNICEF is scheduled for October 18th to the 29th. And there will be a Spirit Week associated with all of the events that are happening in October. In the intermediate and middle school, we celebrated our first Spirit Week throughout the week of September 20th. The themes were Mismatched Socks on Monday, Tuesday was Disney Day, Wednesday was Bring Back the 80s, Thursday was Space Day, and we ended the week with School Spirit Day. The intermediate and middle school also kicked off our new advisory program where each student is connected to a teacher. Students meet with their advisor once a week to check in on grades and make sure that they're doing okay in school. Students also got to attend a variety of seminars which were run by the teachers. In the intermediate school, the students had a school store fundraiser where students raised money that went towards classroom supplies. Each student who participated received a prize. The 4th grade students attended an assembly given by UGI. Reading Olympic signups are starting for 4th and 5th graders. The Race for Education is on Friday, October 8th for grades K through 5. And I personally am very happy to be back in school and with my friends. I'm enjoying band and chorus and all the new things we have this year in 8th grade, except for maybe the homework. I also can't wait to see the school after all the new renovations are completed.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. I asked Lauren to give a little bit of pulse on how it's going so far in her perspective at the intermediate school, especially the construction project and coming back from, for a lot of our students, it's been 2+ years since they've had a normal year. So I thought it'd be good just to hear from the student perspective. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren. All right, moving on. Public comment. Aaron Clark?
Can I just hold mine until the end? It might get answered, my question.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, Board of Directors report. Can I get a motion and a second?
So move sheets.
Second.
Thank you, board members. So, Board of Directors report, we have a few items here this evening, a couple new policies to review. The first item is to review the September 7th minutes that were taken at the school board meeting. Any questions or corrections to this meeting minutes? Okay, none heard. We'll move forward. We do have some new policies. We have no second reading policies. These are just all fresh first reading policies. Just as a reminder, there's a first and a second reading. So this month we'll be reviewing these policies, and next month we'll be officially taking action on these to make them part of the school district policy and operations. So the first three, 1, 2, 3, are related to school board meetings. 006 is related to our actual school board meetings, and there's a new law that came out that has specifically what we need to do to advertise for meeting agendas 24 hours prior to a meeting. And so when there's an emergency meeting held, there's some rules and regulations that go along with what needs to be done with a last minute meeting and what we need to advertise, how we need to advertise that. And so accordingly, we adjusted our policy to match that new law within Pennsylvania. The second one, the public participation in meetings, that's just a review only. We figured since we were doing all the board meeting policies, we figured we'd just tag that in there. So no significant changes there. The 006.2, attendance at meetings via electronic communications. That one is a new policy. It is a PSBA policy. Many years ago, those have been on the board may recall that we put this policy in place so that it facilitated and allowed board members to phone in for a school board meeting or Zoom in for a school board meeting. That had never been permitted before in our policy. Obviously, with the way the world has changed and the fluidity and the availability of technology to do that, we are recommending that the board adopt the PSBA model policy for those types of attendance at meetings for school board members. Number 4 is about, it's 146.1. It's trauma-informed approach, for which again is a law that has come out recently. It is focused on efforts we need to do at the school district level to make sure that staff are trained and to make sure that we have processes in place when there will be trauma. And so for us, procedurally, Dr. Reese and Mr. Barnhart, as our safety coordinator, are the two that have been very heavily involved in this, at reviewing the policies, at putting trainings together, at being the lead for trainings, at doing trainings this summer for our staff. And I give them a lot of credit for putting a plan in place that happened last year as well as this summer. So that is the associated policy that we have to have per the law. Really, it's more procedural because it's things that we want to put in place to better prepare our staff to handle a concerned situation with our students in terms of trauma. The next 3 are related to personnel issues. It's sick leave, personal necessity leave, and vacation leave. The language that has been added is language that grants and approves days on an annual basis. So those policies were established. It says, here's what a sick day is, here's what a vacation day is, here's what a personal day is. But it didn't really designate the process of awarding the day on an annual basis and the process of granting that. So that's what that policy addresses. Items 8 to 12, we are excited to announce that we have completely finished, I say that kind of tongue in cheek, that we have completely finished our 6-year review of our policies. It took us 6 years to get through all our policies. That had not been done, or actually our policies, the last time they were updated was back in the 90s. So it was good to be able to go through that process over the last 6 years. We have concluded, so we are starting all over again. And the WERCO is very excited to be taking the first set of policies. So I'm going to turn it over to her. The way that we're going to proceed is the same way that we kind of left off. We'll start with the 600, which are all financial. The last time we reviewed those was 6 years. So we're going to have that process now start again with this year, going through the financial policies first. So Mr. Guerco, if you don't mind just going through the first batch for us.
Yeah, so as Andrew mentioned, policies 8 through 11 are part of that multi-year review process. Policies, they all had minor tweaks except for policy 602 that remained unchanged. Policy 601 is simply additions to the legal references section, nothing in the context of the policy. Policies 603 and 604 had removal of duplicated items noted in other policies and some minor adjustments to bring the policies in line with current laws and management procedures and best practices. Policy 12 is a new policy, that's policy 625. In this day and age, procurement cards are becoming a larger part of our payment processing process. So therefore, it seems reasonable to have a procurement card policy in place outlining the rules in which they're acceptable use for the employees of the district. And just like any policy, as an employee of the district, you have to adhere to those policies. Policy 13 is our SMILES policy, it's policy 910.1. The only adjustment here is to update the tax credit rate from $7.50 an hour to $10.50 an hour, which is our starting rate for a position in which a volunteer could potentially help with. There's a variety of activities, whether it be at the classroom level or a custodial crossing guard level. We're hoping that with the staffing shortage, this will help promote this program more with the increase in the hourly rate, that we'll get some more volunteers and hopefully help offset some of the needs that we need. And policy 915, again, is new policy. This policy acknowledged that there might be times when people approach us or we approach them about marketing activities that could arise that could be an economic benefit for us as a district. that we want to move forward with. So this outlines the rules in which we're able to move forward with them, but also it kind of safeguards us in that we want to reject the advertising of certain commercial activities that are not beneficial to the advertising in the school district.
Thank you, Ms. Delberco. I was misspoken. I said that the 90s was the last time we did it. It was actually 2004 was the last time those policies were updated. So it still was a while since they had first, and PSBA at that time had pushed out a whole new policy update, and we just blanketly adopted all the policies in 2004. So it is, again, a good refresher for us. So any questions on the policies that are in front of the board this evening?
Just a real quick question, and it may just be on my hard copy. The very last policy, just as I visually scanned down, there's reference to Quakertown Community School District.
Yeah, so that was a draft one we pulled from other districts.
Okay, so that's
It
been
has
updated online.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, hearing no further questions, moving on to committee reports. BCIU, Mrs. Hume.
Good evening, everybody. Just want to highlight a handful of quick items from the September 16th Berks County Intermediate Unit Board of Directors meeting. The first thing is that we recognized and honored for the 7th year a BCIU Outstanding Community Partner through an award that's issued, and that recipient was Mr. Brian Gottschall, Director of the Berks County Department of Emergency Services. Two other real quick things, and I made photocopies so I can pass these out. The BCIU handed out to each of the board members two kind of overview documents. Let's see, I'm not nearly as efficient at this as a teacher would be. I don't have one for you, sir, sorry. That's right. One is for COLA, the Committee on Legislative Action, and I know Mrs. Walliser is going to provide an update on that. And then the other is for the Berks County Equity Committee. So in the news, there has been some discussion and some controversy and some misinformation and some confusion about exactly what that notion of equity is. At the county-wide level, the school district superintendents and some administrators have gotten together, and this goes back for several years, if I'm not mistaken, to form a committee to address issues around equity. And so this document that I've shared will help anybody understand what is within the scope of that committee and those discussions and what is not within the purview of that committee and discussions. So I just ask you to, reference that if there's any confusion or if you're ever asked what the status of some of those discussions is. And then finally, just another quick plug for the annual Keeping Kids Safe conference that the BCIU hosts. This year it will be virtual on Tuesday, October 19th from 8 in the morning until about 1:30. And all board members of all school districts around the county are welcome to attend, as are administrative staff and teachers, etc. of districts. So the registration link is there if you are interested and have the bandwidth to participate. Again, it's an annual event, and for the past 12 years or so that I've been attending, it is always good learning. So thank you. That concludes my report. The next meeting of the BCIU Board of Directors will be Thursday, October 21st.
Perfect, thank you very much. BCTC, Mr. Sheets.
BCTC held their joint operating committee at the West Campus on September 22nd. Nothing really super earth-shattering to report. We did actually have a kind of protracted conversation with Dr. Hackman in regards to just the current situation with busing in Pennsylvania. Lack of bus drivers, not enough qualified individuals to do the job, and how that's adversely impacting pretty much all 18 sending, or all 17 sending districts at JOC. There was nothing really that anybody could do about it. Is basically what it boiled down to. We do feel that it's going to be a good thing for our CDL program because we have people coming in to do that. But again, that was really the main talking point. We're going to be doing some repairs to the CDL lot. We did have a little bit of a snafu out there this year If anybody went through the briefs, you'll see that there was a CDL site asphalt repair for $11,000. We're hoping that we will get reimbursed for that because the company that did it before, basically the first time we put a truck on it, it tore everything up. So, but that's more just kind of gossipy stuff. Our next meeting will be October 27th at East Campus. This concludes my report.
Perfect, thank you.
Do you want me to do salary negotiations from here?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Okay. So nothing new to report.
Next time, make it a little shorter, John.
Yeah.
First, earned income tax, Mr. Huerco.
Yeah, so the EITC met on September 23rd. This was the first meeting I was in attendance. The agenda was short, only lasted 27 minutes. The committee approved the June through August financial reports, reviewed the collections and distributions in conjunction with its new tax software. And they also discussed a collaborative initiative between the EITC and the DCED, which is the Department of Community and Economic Development. They oversee LST. Their goal is basically to streamline processes and get everybody on the same platforms, which would make it easier both internally and also the stakeholders within Berks County. And that's it. The next meeting is in December.
Perfect, thank you. COLA, Mrs. Walliser.
Yeah, so the PSBA chief officer from Harrisburg spoke to us via Zoom, and there's a lot of different House bills going on and Senate bills, mainly regarding charter reform that's going on right now. And I just encourage you to all reach out if you can to your senators and local legislators. I know you all get the PSBA advocacy emails, and there are really quick links that you can go in there and hit on, and it's already email drafted for you that it takes a couple minutes to send to let them know this is important. Just kind of get our voices out there. There is a virtual PSBA Fall Advocacy Day on October 14th. It starts at 8:30 and it'll be via Zoom. They'll provide us with a lot of different talking points, contact information for our legislation. So I plan on checking that out. And Mr. Pattinger, I don't know if there's one that you'd like to share.
No, I think that's a pretty good summary. We did the PSBA version this time. In December, the superintendents will meet with all the county legislators and have a chance to interact and present to them, but dialogue with them. So that's the next big upcoming event that's going to occur in the first next school year. Excellent job, Lauren.
All right, sure.
If I could just, Alexa, or sorry, Laura, if you don't mind me just tagging on to your statement. Yeah. Just so everybody understands, everybody in the audience understands, one of the important things about cyber charters is that cyber charters charge kind of an exorbitant amount of money to local school districts in order to educate those children. The problem is they don't actually spend all of that money on the kids. They spend a significant portion of that money on advertising. So that advertising, that lobbying, all of that money works against the local school districts. It makes them have a louder voice in Harrisburg than what we have as community leaders. So when you see those come through, it's very important that we click those links, we click through, we tell them, hey, we really need to change this, we need to make this, make a difference here. Because again, they're using money that we could be using to educate our kids to advertise and lobby to kind of keep this whole broken system going. So, I'm sorry to add on like that, but it's something I'm passionate about. Thank you, Mr. Rankin, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Policy Committee, Dr. Carter.
In addition to what we reviewed earlier.
Thank you. Strategic planning and goals, Mrs. Eisenhardt.
I don't have anything to report on that, but I did just want to add quickly that on October 23rd is the Delegate Assembly meeting that's going to be held virtually this year again. So, and I'll be in attendance.
Thank you. Building and Construction Committee, Mr. Foddiger.
So there is attached in your board committee reports is a memo from KCBA outlining what has happened during the month of September. Just to give more of an anecdotal record of where we are, The elementary school is pretty much wrapped up with some last minute punch items that are occurring. A lot of that work will occur actually this coming Monday when students are not in the building because of Columbus Day in service. In this building in particular, we are excited to be able to have temporary occupancy permit that was granted today in the new STEM room, which was our old boardroom, LGI. So that we'll be able to start using that space, and the gymnasium was released today as well. So that was really exciting. We were able to use the outside bathrooms this weekend for homecoming, which was a really nice accessibility piece that we were able to do as part of this project, and we're excited to open that up for this weekend as well. Where we are status-wise of this project, we have the majority of the common areas done. All the classroom spaces as of today now are open. So the next big push is to be working on the auditorium. Right now, the ceiling is up. The stage area is being converted so that those risers are built in. Those risers are now constructed. And so the final push is going to be to have all that pulled together for Veterans Day, really by the end of this month, beginning of November, that the project in the auditorium is wrapped up. That's the status update where we are.
Perfect, thank you. Any further comments from the board? Hearing none, can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart?
Yes.
Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser?
Yes.
Mr. Wagman?
Yes.
7 yeas, motion passes.
Thank you. Business and operations report. Could I get a motion and a second?
So moved, Sheets.
Second.
Yeah, so items A through D are to approve the bills list through October 4th. That will be today. Item A, general fund totaling $4,550,953.37. Item B is food service fund totaling $26,010.18. Item C is construction fund totaling $1,860,486.79. Item D is the capital reserve totaling $4,180.57. Item E is to approve the financial reports to August 31st unless otherwise noted. General fund, items 1 through 4 are the funds. Item 5 is our investment schedule. Item 6, which is really little to no activities, student activities and trust funds. I just want to pay note to item 7, that's budget transfers, and that is through June. And those budget transfers are typical of the annual process for the end of the year. Any budgets that are overexpended, we basically do a sweep, pre-audit, and kind of reconcile the accounts for those that are overdrawn versus those that have remaining available funds. So you'll see there's quite a few, kind of an annual process. So that's the, and then item G is to approve additional bandwidth with First Light for internet services at an increased cost of $1.75 per month. Similar is item 2 to approve additional 500 megapixels of bandwidth from Crown Castle for internet services at an increased cost of $4.75 per month. Item 3 is to approve the purchase of licensing for Raptor Technologies to digitize the sign-in and sign-out procedures at an annual cost of $500. And item 4 is to approve the ISMS large group room audio video project with Elements Audio Video at a cost of $48,022.20.
As we transition to the facilities maintenance, Ms. Tozer and I talked about this, so I said I would go through some of these change orders. So my apologies, I wanted to have a comprehensive change order document in front of you this evening, and admittedly it fell off my radar to get it to you. So I promise you that you'll have that for the November board meeting. Over the course of the last few board meetings, you've approved change orders, and I thought it'd be good for you as a board member to see that collective list. So I'll make sure that one is sent to you electronically, but also that it's at the next board meeting for your review. There are some change orders that are on here for this evening for consideration. Unfortunately, a lot of these are misses that were part of the architectural plan from our architect, KCBA, and a few of these are ones that are hidden items that those are understandable. You're going through a renovation, you find a steel beam, something pops up that you don't realize. Those things are bound to happen. but the ones that are misses are the ones that are really hard to swallow. So change order A is one of those misses. They had to relocate some piping due to an electrical panel. So the plumbing and electrical panel were laid on top of each other, and because of that, obviously you can't have those two mixing. So we had to reroute that, and that's what that change order is. The item B is it says stainless steel sinks in the new trainer room, which was the old boys locker room. They had to construct a new bathroom, and where they laid the bathroom out was right in the middle of an old existing sink, and so we had to relocate and move some piping around. And so on site, I made a recommendation to put a sink on the inside where the bathroom is, but then also, since we were right there and had the drainage, put one on the outside so that they could come in. It's a big space that's on the outside there where they could wash out the water bottles and things like that as they're coming to use the ice maker and things like that. So that's what that change order is. Item C is for floor cleanouts. This is one of those kind of unforeseen issues. If you go down the hallways, there's brass plates that are about 4 to 6 inches big. Those brass plates were too low from what the new flooring is, so they had to raise those up to be able to accommodate and make that bump. So that's what that item is. Item D is for asbestos removal or abatement work. That's the $28,000 there. It's a big number, but there was a lot of asbestos that was removed. Unfortunately, my goal was to remove all the asbestos out of this building that we could, because twofold. One, we had it exposed, so let's take care of the problem. Two, it's probably going to be a lot more costly next time they do a project in 20 years, knowing just how escalation goes. So unfortunately, we couldn't do that because we hadn't reached our maximum legal threshold to be able to remove asbestos without having to shut down the building completely from a construction project, and then make a massive delay. So the majority of the asbestos was in the hallway. That has been removed. The items that are remaining are piping that is down at that last wing. As long as that asbestos is not touched, it's completely fine. And there's all kinds of warning labels on it. Don't touch this, don't remove this. So it's completely safe. The problem is if you ever disturb it. And so we know that. We have a asbestos plan for the school district that's documented. The frustrating part is we knew about this. We told the architect that there was asbestos in here. Mr. Wetzel stays on top of that. He informed the architect and there was no allowances put in for that. So that's why there was a change order to pay for this. Item E was a steel column that was found in those new laboratories I was talking about, down the exterior laboratories for the stadium. There was a steel column that was found in that process. So again, one of those hidden unforeseen items, and so kind of understandable. And then item F, when we redid the common areas out here, there is a custodial closet over there. That custodial closet was part of the project to reallocate some of that spacing, but there wasn't flooring that was accounted for when they reused that custodial closet. So there is a cost to the cheapest way that Mr. Wetzel and the administration decided to move forward with this was to say, let's just put an epoxy paint down and be done with it, and make it a quick, user-friendly type manner for the custodial closet. So that's change order F, is to paint that floor in this order. Any questions on those change orders?
Is there any recourse with the architect engineers on the stuff that they missed?
So at this point, we have been in touch with Mr. Kellen, who is part of our legal firm, to talk about what some options we have available to talk about these misses. The misses are couched as, they classify them as either omissions or errors, and they're classified as omissions. So the logic that has been provided to the school district is because they missed it, we would be paying for it anyways. Because if it was in the plans, the architect or the building company that was bidding on it would have bid it higher because that would have been in the plans and they would have seen that. And of course argued against that and said, well, yeah, but when you do a change order, there are fees associated with that, and they're going to raise the rate of what that is, where as a project might cost this for a change order, it would maybe only cost that much if it was part of the overall package of this close to $6 million renovation project. So, but yeah, we have been in touch with our legal firm to see what some next options would be.
So moving on to item C is to approve a proposal from Conrad Siegel to perform the 2021 Affordable Care Act employer reporting services at a cost of $5,700. This is no change from the prior 2 years, and the scope of services do remain unchanged as well. So item D is to approve the updated roster of bus drivers driven by Brandywine Transportation for the 21-22 school year. I know transportation is a hot topic as far as driver shortage, but as you can imagine, the rosters are changing as well. Drivers are coming and going. We lost a few initially, but we've hired a few since then, and we kind of have some in the pipeline. So this is the updated list as it stands today. I would say on a positive note, Friday I was at a Mid-East PASO meeting with other business administrators in Berks and Schuylkill County. I would say relatively speaking, in comparison to most of the other districts, we're actually faring pretty well. And I would say Paige, our new transportation specialist, has done phenomenal because things are changing by the hour, so she's communicating with families and then just internally talking to principals, making sure the students get on the right bus. So she's done phenomenal, but some other districts are resorting to canceling certain runs entirely. You hear about the rotating schedules, and some are canceling all extracurricular activity bus runs. So leaving parents to figure out how the kids get to and from either sports or after-school activities. So at this time, we haven't had to do any of this alternative. So I'd say that is the way I can at this moment right now. So.
Any other board comments, questions?
Mr. Wetton, I have one quick question and then a quick comment. Under G, curriculum technology, items 1 and 2, both are to approve additional 500
megabits per second. Yep.
Thank you. Yes, mega, whatever.
Yep.
Of bandwidth, one from First Light and then the other from Crown Castle. There's a dramatic difference in the cost. $175 from one provider, $475 for the same size from the other. Just quickly help us understand what's driving that cost differential.
Absolutely. So those are two different internet service providers, both purchased at slightly different times through an RFP process. Just due to the nature of that internet service provider, what they built into their escalation clause to go from 1 gig to 1.5 gigs up to 2 gigs. That's just what the price differential ended up coming out through that RFP process. Still, those numbers are significantly less than other numbers that are around.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
And then my comment, I just want to praise the folks, Mr. Wetzel, I believe it's probably your team, and maybe even at some point this summer students were involved. The landscaping out in front of this building at the various entrances, great job. I have been concerned about the look of that for years and years and years and years. The landscaping was so old and so tired and just didn't kind of reflect well in terms of the energy that's inside this building. So thank you, and kudos to your team for doing a great job on that. Even the little bit of change makes a huge difference. So thank you and great job.
Thank you for that recognition. So I'll add that Mr. Wetzel and the student helpers this summer and his staff were able to get everything removed. It was actually Mr. Freena's vision for doing the actual planting and what's out there right now. So thank you for that recognition.
Yeah, very fun.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Eisenhardt? Yes. Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser?
Yes.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
7 yeas, motion passes.
Right, moving on to superintendent's report. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
So we only have one item for consideration this evening. It is to approve a high school field trip that was planned in 2019, and then COVID-19 happened. And so we were kind of have been putting that on hold. It never received official board approval just because of the timing, the way everything fell. So we asked Dr. Graham to come this evening. Dr. Graham is one of our teachers in the high school that has been heavily involved in trips overseas. He has done a phenomenal job of coordinating those, of making sure that the trip is educational that the kids are, that our kids are safe, and that the kids are getting a great experience out of the trips. And so, Dr. Graham, if you don't mind coming forward, I know you have a little bit of a presentation here for the board. When we do a field trip that is overseas, it has become customary for us to just have that chaperone, that teacher that is sponsoring a trip, come to the board, share what the educational value is, share what the trip itinerary is, and be able to answer and facilitate any discussion the board might have about the upcoming trip. And so we thought it'd be good for Dr. Graham, even though it's this, again, a little bit out of order, this one, but just to come and present that trip to the school board and share some of the great experiences that are lying for our students this coming year. Dr. Graham, thank you for coming to see you.
So what I'm doing is just showing you the slide presentation that is here to students long ago when we planned this trip. And it obviously it was the trip was scheduled in a different world before this pandemic hit. And as some of you may know, I've taken a few of these trips before, so I'm kind of a veteran of this stuff, especially working with EF for 2 trips that went very well. And I basically just decided to, my travel experience. Well, there you get some sense of me with some of my students at Parthenon, walking around Sistine Chapel where I was not supposed to take a photograph, but I did it down here. That's why you see my throat, not my face. And you can see my face there on the upper left where I was, this is something they do on these trips. They don't let you sleep when you get to the country, so you just kind of go, and I'm sitting this. There's a little black square at the back of that room, and that's the Mona Lisa. And at that point, I was just so sick of the crowds and so tired. I'm like, here, I saw it. Let's move on. But I mean, what's great about these trips is that they give the students access to, the magnificence of Western civilization. These incredible ones, Versailles, the Sistine Chapel, Musée d'Orsay, the Rectillon, etc. The Louvre. I mean, this trip, if we ever get there, we will be going to the Louvre. And that was kind of one of my impetuses behind this, was let's get people to some of the best museums in the world. And I'm an art teacher, so I want them to see London, Paris, obviously, because then you get a chance to look at the National Gallery, at the British Museum. A lot of the works that I do in APR history are there at the British Museum and at the Louvre. So that was something that was really important to me. After last year, the trip has been rescheduled tentatively for these dates. They don't let you know exactly when you're leaving until 60 days before departure. I don't know why, it's a little frustrating, but that's how it always goes. But that's the window, roughly. Okay. And EF is, has Ms. Gladler done her meeting?
She did.
Okay. So,
A couple years ago.
I mean, EF is the big student travel company. They do, I think they're the second largest, or were the second largest purchaser of airline tickets in the country. So they run a lot of tours. Yeah, and this was their presentation. They put this together. But yeah, so a lot of local schools go to EF. It's not like no one's ever heard of it. I went on an EF trip when I was 15 years old to the USSR of all places. Gosh, I could tell you some. There was bugs in our hotel rooms. I just remember that. And yeah. So Yeah. Mr. Pottinger sent me an email about some questions that some people had about, I guess, just what happens if this happens, what happens if that happens. If you go to their website, eftours.com, a lot of those contingency plan type things are available. I can speak to them specifically now. There was a question about uh, the, what happens if someone's over there and gets COVID, what will happen? EF has a plan for that. I don't have it memorized, unfortunately, because I just looked it up, but it's there. I can show it to you later. I have the link to it. When you're over there, they have a tour director who's with us all day long, all night long. If there's an emergency, they're the ones who speak the language. They're native to that place, and they will get in touch with both places where we're going. London and Paris have EF field offices, so it's not like we're off the beaten path there. And this has never happened to me that we've ever needed, thank heavens, to use the emergency line, but it's always there. It's not like we're alone there. There's a large EF organization that takes this stuff pretty seriously. So, I mean, especially nowadays. Group travel, obviously, it's that we're not going to be alone. We're going to be with other groups on the bus, because it's small groups. Someone had asked how many students are on this trip. There are 10. We had a bunch, and then people stopped. They dropped out last year. In terms of, there's another question, how many chaperones? There's myself and a parent of one of the students on the trip, Genevieve, Paul's mother. So we got a male, female chaperone, and that's always kind of what you want to do, bed checks, which is really the only time you need to worry about that sort of thing. And you know, in terms of chaperoning, for me, it's a 16-hour day, 10 days in a row. It's a very arduous, high-maintenance sort of experience. It's not quite, it's not a vacation. It's a vacation when I'm standing there in front of an artwork, but it's not a vacation when I'm making sure, okay, head count off the bus, head count into the place, head count out of the place, head count onto the bus. It just goes on and on and on. I get so sick of like calling their names out. It's like, maybe, I don't know, like a dozen, 15, 20 times a day. You cross the street, you cross that street. I'm very, very hyper, what's the word? Just particular about the safety there. I don't want anyone getting into any sort of problems when we're over there on my account. Let's just get to the itinerary. Supposedly we're going to fly into London. They say supposedly because I looked at the CDC website and they're like, don't go to the UK. No, we mean it. Don't go to the UK. So I don't really know what the status is. It's October or whatever it is today, and as we know, these things change quite rapidly. France doesn't have, if you look at a map of the world, it's all red, you know, level 4, highest level. Everybody's got COVID, although there are some places, even in Europe, that are more, I think, virulent than others. I know, because I have friends in Europe, they're looking at Eastern Europe, not so good, Western Europe, better. But in terms of the vaccinations, this was another question that came up. Do they need to have vaccines to get into the country? In a word, yes, they do. They just, if you don't have a vaccine going into England or France, it's just going to be a real headache at this point. And I've been telling this to the students, hey guys, if you don't have a vaccine, I mean, I think it might be a good idea if you want to get into France. Otherwise, it's long list. I was looking at French immigration. It's just, well, you have to do this and that hoop and this hoop, and you have to get this test the minute you get off the plane, and then you have to be quarantined for 72 hours, and no. So at this point, yeah, there's no point in traveling if you're not vaccinated to Europe. It's just a no deal sort of scenario. So the idea is we go to London for 2 days, and there's a side trip to Canterbury, and from there we go to the beach of Normandy, June 6, 1944, and see the hallowed ground of D-Day there, and we moved to Mont Saint Michel and Saint Malo, these kind of medieval sort of. No, it's just about 30 days. Okay, well. So from there we go to what I'm really looking forward to, which is Chartres, the great medieval cathedral, and then to Paris and Dubai for home. We're not doing the Amsterdam extension because that was lots more money, and one of the reasons I wanted to go on this trip in the first place to England and not somewhere further was to keep costs down, because I know trips are a huge amount of financial outlay. So it's a great trip. At this point, I'm just so drained from waiting for it for so many years at this point that I'm kind of jaded about, like, yeah, maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't. I mean, because there's just things that we can't seem to control, unfortunately. There's not, right. What's included? Yeah, I mean, this shows you all the stuff that we're getting, which is nice. The only thing you pay for really when you're over there is lunch, and it's minimal. So it's actually, you get the whole package. You get the buses, you get the, when we were in Paris, I know because I've been there with an EF trip before, they give you subway tickets and you can just go all over the city all day long. It's actually quite convenient. And that's something I've already figured out how to do that. Things you would cover, yeah, okay. No one pays bag and shoes. Spending money, yes. Tips, that there is usually collect about 100 euros worth of tips that we have to ask to this guy and that guy. But I do that before. I have to go and exchange the dollars and the euros, and then I have to carry around all this money, which is also one of my less pleasant duties. I mean, there's days when I was walking around Italy with $6,000 in my, neck wallet, and I did nothing like that. But and I also carry their passports because I don't trust the students to actually hold on to their passports, so I carry them with me, and they never get lost that way. So it's just and et cetera. Okay, so this was the payment plan. If that's how much the trip actually cost the students, and that's about yeah, that's about it. So I'll try to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions for Dr. Green?
This is not the same trip from the debacle with the credits.
This is
Sorry.
part of it.
This is debacle number 2. So this one, there were 2 trips planned. There was a bigger one that is planned for the spring as well. That's Mrs. Weiler.
Germany.
And then there was Dr. Graham's, which is smaller. And that one, again, now is looking to get scheduled. In the spring. So the EF Tours has changed a lot of their policies since when we first started this process. If you go on the website, there is something called a Peace of Mind program, and they will basically refund tickets minus the $500 deposit. So if we would not be able to go this spring, as Dr. Graham said, that there's COVID's still a concern in other parts of the world, and so we're asking for your blessing for this trip so that we can get it approved and continually monitor. So Dr. Graham mentioned the dates up there, the end of March into early April. We're going to continue monitoring that. EF Tours will make that recommendation as we get 60 days out. Is it safe for us to be going and traveling right now? Should we be looking to push push this back? Can we push it back? What does it mean to our seniors? How does that intersect with their Peace of Mind program? And getting that refund back for families, and getting that whole process in place. But at this point, we're hopeful that we will be able to travel in the spring, and Dr. Graham can go on his trip, and then as well as Mrs. Weiler on hers.
So did we buy
We did.
vouchers?
Yeah. So we actually, EF Tours and our business office just did basically an internal audit to make sure that our numbers were in sync. And we still have credits on the books. And so Mrs. Weiler is still doing some open enrollments for her trip. And any student that enrolls will go and buy that. They'll buy it from EF Tours, but it'll be our credit that they're buying. And so it'll come back to the school district to wash that out. If we have any remaining after this year, we are looking to do another trip in the future, next year or 2 years from now, and then that should wash out the rest of that credit. Any other questions for Dr. Gray?
I'll be good to go.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you, Dr. Graham.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doctor.
We do have some informational reports on the superintendent report. I'm going to actually turn this over to Mr. Volker. Mr. Volker has done an excellent job of spearheading our fall edition of the Bullet Pride newsletter, and I thought he could just share a few updates of that process in the newsletter.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Again, obviously, a work like this definitely takes the work of the full team. You see and hear contributions from our superintendent with the welcome back message. We have student voice in here talking about what it's like coming back to school this year. So if you didn't get a chance to read through it, I encourage you to do so. We have a couple of items highlighted as our points of interest. In this edition, we have this building's building project. We also have just an overview of our strategic plan to remind people where we are, where we're headed. And also we took an opportunity to highlight our new website and our smartphone app. So again, we want to make sure that we encourage people to download that app, because that's a great way for us to continue to send communications through. Again, it's always really great anytime you get to see students learning. So we have our sections across the building talking about or showing what it is that students are doing, including our virtual academy. And of course, we have our traditional section here for our athletic department. Unique this time, we have a number of our new teacher faces in here with who's new in the zoo. So we're very excited to take an opportunity to showcase our new teachers. We're very excited to have you guys aboard. And then just a couple of community connections. Wrapping up one more time with a way for our community to stay connected. We have all of those hyperlinks in there, including our new district Twitter account, which is really the primary one that people want to subscribe to, because that's the ones that, again, it's myself, it's Mr. Pottiger even. He's gone down to social media. It's very exciting. Yeah, we have Mrs. Kircher, Ms. Warman, everybody contributes to what's going on across the district. So instead of a parent having to subscribe to 5 different Twitter accounts, you now have, this is the district account. So things we're very excited about. Check it out.
Finally, if I could just make a few mentions about our enrollment report. The reason we highlight the October enrollment report is that we have to submit and upload to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and they always look at the October enrollment report as your annual enrollment report. So when we look at our October one, if you do any comparison, particularly this year from the August to September, you'll notice that this one's a little bit less than where we were in August and September. That's because, if you recall, we had some transitions happen with registration, and the withdrawals that occurred over the summer weren't accounted for. And so now everything is kind of balanced out. And so that's why we end right now at 1304. Last year at this time, we were at 1342, so we are down 38 students district-wide from where we were last year to this year. The number of students with IEPs is holding steady at almost 22%. And then the free reduced lunch statistically is holding steady as well at about 31%. I do believe that's artificially low, though. And the reason I say that is because we saw that there was bubbles of almost 50%, and those have dropped down to 35%. And I think what has happened is because the meals are free right now for all students, families aren't as pressed or inclined to have to do the application process. And so that's why we're not seeing as many of the food reduced lunch numbers statistically as we used for poverty, which is those applications that have to get put in. So and still there's some, alarming concerns there. When you look at ninth grade, 37% of our students are at that poverty level. Sixth grade, basically 36%. When you drop down to the elementary school, third grade's at 35%, and our kindergarten's at 33%. So there are definitely pockets and grade levels that are higher hit than other grade levels. I haven't really seen a rhyme or reason for that, but there are definitely some pockets. And again, some of those we called out earlier this summer that were almost at 50%. So my anticipation is next year when we sit here at the October, that we might see that number ratchet a little higher. So the question might be like, okay, so what are we doing to support those students? One of the highlights I'd like to just spend a second on is we've been partnering with Helping Harvest, which has been providing food monthly pickups to our community. There's been about 150 to 200 families that come on a monthly basis here to this building to get food. And it's a very well organized plan. They have just come to us, and for this weekend was our first weekend, we're able to send meals home with our students that signed up for it. And we had almost 120 students that signed up for meals to be taken home over the weekend. So a nice another way to support our families that are in need right now. Any questions on the superintendent report?
I have two quick questions.
Yes.
Number two, the PSAT. So yeah, the bullet says the district's going to provide a free PSAT to all 11th graders and 10th graders who want to pay. Can you refresh our memory, if you would? What's the history been on that? And what's the current thinking on why some kids are being asked to pay and why others are getting that fee paid for them?
Sure, quick answer. Oh, sorry, someone.
You're the boss.
Go ahead.
Okay, so as part of Pennsylvania Act 158, essentially it's the Keystone graduation requirement. So our students have to pass their Keystones, and in the event that a Keystone is not passed, starting with the class of 2023, they can then enter one of 5 pathways. The tricky part, if I can kind of speak from my lens, is you're not going to find out sometimes how well your students have done until you really you're up against the time limit to get them to complete a pathway so that they can graduate. One of the pathways is an alternate assessment pathway, where a score on the PSAT, qualifying score of the PSAT, will kind of check one of the boxes and allow them the opportunity to graduate. So this will be the first time that we've tried this. We've done a larger administration of the PSAT for our juniors, so we've offered it to them because it's a data point, obviously for some of our college-bound students, but also an opportunity for them to meet that alternative assessment pathway in the event that they don't meet proficiency in their Keystones. And then we have sophomores that still sometimes are interested in trying their hand at that PSAT. So we still offer them that administration as we always have, but typically they've been ones to pay into the exam. And that might change now that they know they'll be taking it in their junior year. This is the first time we've done that.
Thank you. I'm noodling that. In terms of the impact financially, can you remind us what are we talking about when a family has to pay for the PSAT?
I believe to pay for PSAT is between $20 and $25, essentially.
So is our goal that we want more 10th graders to take it, or is our goal that we want all 11th graders to take it?
Typically, most of our 10th grade students are already sitting in at least 2 of those Keystones that year. They're going to be taking their Bio Keystone and their English 10 Keystone. So the 11th grade year was a good year in our opinion. Then in the event that they did not pass the Keystone, to have this alternative assessment pathway, one of the 5 pathways that they could use. So it gives us a little more space after that 10th grade year so that they could take the test.
Okay. I'm just trying to frame up, are we, by assessing a fee to some portion of the population, putting up an unnecessary barrier? If our goal is to get the kids to take it, but if it doesn't matter whether they take it in 10th or 11th, or in 10th, because they're going to take it in 11th, then I guess it's not a barrier. They have a second chance the next year.
Correct. And for some students, the PSAT is also a pathway into the some scholarship opportunities if they do well enough as well. So we do have some 10th grade students that want to take the PSATs and have a big appetite to do that because it's going to give them some opportunities for that scholarship money, and also to be, national merit scholars.
Thank you. One other question, different topic, all the way down the bottom of the page under Virtual Academy, it references 50-some freshman seminar students that are taking that seminar online. And again, I apologize, would you be willing to refresh our memory about high-level course content for our new freshman seminar and what differences there might be in the Virtual Academy offering of that versus in the classroom offering of that?
Sure, actually, because it's pretty cool. It's completely identical, other than the person who's overseeing, and actually the person who is overseeing, even if they're in the virtual academy, is still a Brandywine Heights High School teacher that's teaching freshman seminar. The problem is we do have freshmen that are in some different courses their freshman year and can't schedule. They don't have as much space when they're scheduling. Maybe they're in, band and chorus or additional classes. That's made it not possible for them to get in to a physical section of freshman seminar. So because it was built in Edgenuity, myself and Mrs. Honich, when we looked at the curriculum for that, it can be delivered virtually for those students that can't physically schedule into it. But the same teachers that are overseeing the physical sections of freshman seminar also oversee our virtual students as well in terms of their submissions.
And just a quick reminder, what is the primary course content for our new freshman seminar?
Absolutely. I'm sorry. It's digital literacy, things that they're seeing online, study skills, basic approaches to organizational things that we think would help set our freshmen up for success as they progress through the high school, to sort of lay a foundation for some of that higher level coursework in their 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year.
And just to frame it up just one step further, keep in mind through the strategic planning process, when we said, what do we want our graduates to be able to do when they leave us? The other part of this is that 11th grade seminar where there's a financial component.
That's the piece I was confused about.
No problem.
Because I know we just got an award for our finance program. Yeah.
Very exciting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser?
Yes.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhardt?
Yes.
And Mr. Knight?
Yes.
7 yeas, motion passes.
Thank you. Personnel report. Could I get a motion and a second?
So moved. Sheets.
Second.
Collier.
Under personnel report this evening, we have 2 resignations. One is from one of our learning support teachers. The other one is from one of our longtime baseball coaches, Mr. Cole. He has decided to step away from his coaching career in order to spend a little bit more time with his family and his son before he graduates. So good opportunity for him. It's a shame for our program, but he's done a phenomenal job for us. So we have definitely reached out to thank him for all his service to our community. We have that change of status. Under the change of status for the 2 individuals listed, that is a change because of the new program we offered at the middle school here, where we're doing more of an exploratory language experience for our 8th grade students before they go to high school. So that's what those adjustments are, to make sure our staff are available to be able to teach those courses. Under C for appointments, under support staff, we have the opportunity to make an appointment for a food service worker. We have 2 long-term substitutes that we're recommending for this evening. You probably can see that one of them is a personal connection. And so if I could just take a moment, just to, as superintendent, I wanted to make sure that the board was aware. We tried to make this as transparent as possible. I myself was completely removed from that process because I did not want any conflict of interest to occur. I also wanted to make sure that the process was completely true and that there was no bias involved in this hire. So the recommendation is, and the individuals who are involved are the building principal, the assistant superintendent, the board president was involved in this process, and our solicitor were involved as well. So this is definitely some more eyes on this one because of the personal connection. But I just wanted to reassure the board that at no point did I have any personal connection into this, and I wanted to stay as neutral as I possibly could through this process. If this would go through, just to again reassure the board, any evaluations or any connections that would happen from a personnel standpoint would happen with the building principal through the HR lens and or through senior leadership, particularly the assistant superintendent, and I would be removed from that process as well. Item E is to approve some unpaid days for an employee. And item F are some approvals of mentorships that are occurring right now with our employees. And then that goes on to back to the item. I'm sorry, those are mentors as well on the back of the. Any questions on personnel items?
Would you separate out item C3, please? And before that vote, I'd like to make
You got it.
So the motion now is change the motion.
So we have a motion, Mrs. Hume?
I'm just requesting to modify the motion so that we can do a separate vote on everything in C, in everything in this entire section with the exception of C3B.
So we have a motion to pull out section 3B for voting. You get a second?
I just need to amend my motion.
Yes,
Second
the
is
amendment motion.
I amend my motion.
All right, are there any other questions in regards to all items except for 3B? Oh, sorry, C3. Oh. Hearing none, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mrs. Wallweiser?
Yeah.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart?
Yes.
Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Wyman?
Yes.
7 yeas, motion passes.
All right, moving on to C3B. Ms. Hume?
Appreciate the opportunity to make a comment. The board met this evening at about 5:20 in executive session to discuss the personnel item that appears on tonight's agenda. Due to the unusual timing, I was unable to participate in that meeting. So I feel it's important to share my thoughts with my colleagues and anyone in the audience. It's a challenging situation to be put in because of the relationship between the candidate and the district superintendent. The board does not currently have a policy which addresses nepotism, so there's no guidance provided to us in that regard. Hence, I must lean on my own personal and professional experiences to guide my decision making. I've worked in a variety of large organizations, all of which had strict HR policies against nepotism. On the other hand, as many of you know, I'm currently involved in a very small family business, which is riddled with nepotism. It has created some wonderful productivity advantages, but some uniquely challenging situations as well. The situation in front of us, however, is completely different than a small, privately owned family business. The school district is a public entity and it's funded by taxpayer dollars, and as a result, the perception of any impropriety can be extremely damaging. As such, it's my personal opinion that it would be inappropriate to have a teacher or administrator or any staff member, even a coach, in the direct supervisory line of one's spouse or immediate family member. No matter how professional and how ethical the individuals involved might be, and I consider these individuals to be highly ethical and highly professional. Unfortunately, I still believe that it's ill-advised to allow this. Some of you may recall several years back, the board was presented with a similar situation when we were hiring Mr. Farina as principal of this building, and his spouse was a teacher and in his direct chain of command. Back then, I voted not to support that situation. Mr. Farina has proven to be an outstanding employee of the district. But know also that we rectified that reporting situation when his spouse moved to work in a different Brandywine building, and most importantly, in a different chain of command. So given the superintendent's role as the top leader, no movement of this particular candidate can take her out of his chain of command. During the hiring process, as Mr. Pottinger noted, he removed himself due to his acknowledged potential conflict of interest. He did so proactively and appropriately. But moving forward, I believe it would be inequitable if we expected our superintendent to not be involved in this candidate's performance discussions, in professional development conversations, in resource allocation discussions, in the appointment of her to committees, in potential parent complaints, and the like. Further, we all know the world of special ed is fraught with legal challenges, and the district, in my opinion, would be in a weaker position if our superintendent must remove himself from those proceedings due to a perceived conflict of interest. And yet we can't risk having a litigant claim impropriety or bias. So having said all that, I want it to be very clear that my vote is in no way a reflection of the professional capabilities or the personal integrity of the individuals involved, either the candidate or our superintendent. My vote will reflect a bias against nepotism in large public organizations due to the very real challenges that will inevitably be faced by this acknowledged conflict of interest. Thank you for giving me the time to share my thoughts.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions in regard to C3B?
Yes. Oxford Language Dictionary defines nepotism as the practice among those of power of influence of favoring relatives or friends, especially by giving them jobs. At no point in time during the hiring process did Mr. Pottinger give any sort of influence or favoring, because it was completely out of his hands. He put it in other people's hands. I have complete faith in Mr. Pottinger to do his job, just as I will have complete faith in Mrs. Pottinger to do her job if she is employed here. Just really felt like I needed to say that, because although there was a lot of endorsement in the statement of my colleague, it was rather offensive to me. Personally, that's my feelings. I don't want to argue about it. So again, I don't believe there's been any favoring or undue influence placed on anyone in this process. Thank you, Mr. Wagner.
And I'd like to say, I think we are lucky to be able to have Amanda Pottinger be willing to be our artistic support classroom teacher, because that is not an easy role to fill, and it takes a very, very special person to do it, and I can't think of anyone better.
I also think you brought up the point about litigation, and I don't know if Mr. Pratt, it was mentioned that we still maintain some protection if there is any litigation brought against, correct?
Correct. The way that we have set this up, from my understanding, is Ms. Pottinger will be supervised by someone who is, and Mr. Volker, you can jump in here as needed, that she's going to be supervised as well as mentored by someone who has vast experience in the area. So therefore, we'll have someone that she can utilize as a resource, and that the checks and balances with the principal as well as the assistant superintendent will be the same as any other professional employee in the school district. So those protections would be there for the school district.
Any additional comments? Sure.
I was just gonna say, I appreciate where this is coming from, but Amanda's already been here as pre-K, even though it was through the IU. I think if there were any, inappropriate things that were gonna happen, it would have already taken place. I sort of feel like she's had a tryout, and this has been more of her, you know what I mean? Like, she's proven that, and I think Ms. Carter has proved too, that there's nothing going to happen that we can't. I mean, I appreciate where you're coming from, but I do think that they've proven that they would, do their duties without anything inappropriate happening.
Appreciate that. And again, this is not a reflection of any individuals. It is a philosophical challenge for me to support allowing individuals to report in direct line of supervision. And so while Mrs. Pottinger has done a fantastic job from what I've gathered, running our pre-K program. She is employed by the VCIU and located in our elementary building. So I get that she has all the relationships, she knows the kids, she's gonna be terrific. Philosophically, I can't condone it, philosophically. And so there should be no offensive reaction to it whatsoever. It's a philosophical difference.
All right, could I get a roll call on this item?
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mrs. Wallweiser? Yes. Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart?
Yes.
Mrs. Henry? Mrs. Hume?
No.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 nay, motion passes.
All right, Mrs. Clark, would you,
I do have 2 quick questions.
you got it.
My question is, when you go back and you elaborate on the change orders, my question is, will you be highlighting the change orders marked PC, they go in order, but then when we get to the Gracie construction, the revisions, we go from 7 and then we jump to 11. So where are 8, 9, and 10 included on the revisions for number 7? Typically, they go in order.
So I don't have 8, 9, and 10 in front of me, so I can't speak to what they are. The change orders have popped up, obviously numerically in time.
Okay.
They have not been approved in that way though.
Okay.
So for some things, they've been held up for a longer amount of time, or
Okay.
whether that was a change order that occurred and the district didn't agree with the cost, or the architect fought on the cost, and so it went back and forth, causing that delay to happen.
But when you are doing your comprehensive one, they'll all be listed numerically, like 1 through, I think we're up to 12, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and my next question is, because I wear multiple hats and I represent the Sports Booster Club, can you provide any updates on where we are with facilities and athletic fields?
Thank you. I actually
know
wanted
we
to.
have multiple plans and phases, so just so I can get some definitive answers on where that stands.
Yep, thank you, Mrs. Clark, and
No
I
problem.
apologize. I actually wanted to include that in my report earlier, and I forgot. So there is a board construction committee. They met last week, and they met with the group that's going to be doing our final phase, which will do some work out here at this building, and to bring that up to speed in terms of accessibility at the top of the stadium, in terms of some lighting upgrades. We obviously did the bathroom upgrades, but we want to create a venue here that we can be financially fiscally responsible, while at the same time enhancing this location. The majority of the work from a facilities perspective will be over at the high school, and to create more accessibility in terms of conceptually some kind of driving loop to the back of the building where the stadium is and where that glass wall is, where it goes into the gymnasium. From an accessibility to the field, but also from a safety standpoint, it's one of the things that the board and administration have been very concerned about right now with the way that parking is in the back and dropping kids off. So we want to make sure it's a lot more accessible.
That does affect athletic fields, correct?
That's right, yeah. And then upgrading the athletic fields, lighting for that field, some bleacher enhancements, things like that for
So
that
we're
high
in
school field.
planning phase, correct, right now?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
You're planning phase, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when will that potentially be voted on?
The tentative timeline is to vote on that at the January board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Mrs. Clark.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, I do need to announce that we had an executive session prior to the meeting, and we'll be adjourning into executive session after the meeting, and I do not believe there is any action that will be taken after that executive session tonight. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move, Sheets.
Second, Eisenhart.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.